Alright. I'm gonna guard your ears here. It's 2:01 on July 20th. Monday, 2 p.m. or 2 excuse me. We're gonna open and call to order our Ogden Valley City Council work session for the day. A real quick roll call for presidents. We've got Councilmember Hickman, Julie Baker, and Hoagland. So just enough here for a quorum. We have council members Shaw and Ruth with excused absences. I am Mayor Wambler. We have our very trusty and loyal staff over there, our reporter and IT director. We also have guests in house with us today, as you will see on that agenda, but we have Christine Williams, a wonderful Ogden Valley resident who has been helping us with organizational structures. And we have our guest panel that we will fully introduce later, but we have Mr. Duncan Murray, Madison Aviles, and Bill Morris with us today. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll follow that with no slide. Thank you. All right, we've got a little bit of business to get out of the way before we dive into the meat of the agenda. So we have some standing items that we bring up in kind of every single public meeting that we have, just to make sure that we're constantly giving the public the latest information and the most up-to-date updates on certain standing topics that are constantly moving in this new city. So the first one is a planning update. Councilman Food isn't here. Councilmember Baker, would you like to take that? If not, I think.
Well, no, I don't think so. I'll turn it to Brian because I believe it was just until the moratorium was lifted, the update on planning for the moratorium. So that, as everyone knows, has been lifted. And just working on the permitting processes to see how that's going. So is Brian on?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Okay. Brian, I think this is mostly about the shoreline, just updating everybody about where that is with the date and the public hearing and all that.
Yes, good afternoon. Yeah, we have a public hearing scheduled for the 11th of August at 6 p.m. to take comment from the public on a proposed change to the shoreline land use zone. The proposed change is to increase the maximum height of main structures from 25 feet to 35 feet. I've already received a couple of comments, but yeah, we look forward to it being a productive hearing.
So Brian, in our last city council work session, we discussed that date is also the exact date that was announced for the public hearing on truth and taxation. It is a bit in flux on whether that will happen or not, but at the moment it is still published and we're moving forward there. I don't know if I'd advise both to happen because residents are gonna want to go both. So we might want to discuss offline if we can adjust that date. For the truth and taxation would be able to be adjusted unless it's canceled altogether because it's gone through the county assessor.
Yeah.
I guess we'll get together offline and discuss that. You have not sent the mailage, correct?
No, that's correct. We haven't published any noticing. We've just simply scheduled with the planning commission to arrange for that time. So
Perfect.
yeah, the planning commission, I believe, has some flexibility. They were just not available on July 28th, so we looked to the next available Tuesday on their schedule.
Perfect. We'll figure that out. Is there anything else from planning that everybody needs to be there?
No, thank you. I think everything's going just fine.
Perfect. Like to hear that. Thank you very much. Legal update. I'm gonna ask Councilmember Hoagland if you'll give us a brief legal update.
Certainly. Just repeating from our updates last week, District Court Judge, Shaughnessy, in Salt Lake, also designated as tax court judge, issued a decision on Monday last week stating that although the city had done everything it could and should have done to get its certificate of incorporation issued, and the citizens and the city should be able to start out fully funded and serving the citizens. The point of law was not in our favor. And basically his conclusion was the tax commission regulations were basically gap fillers and filling in information about the tax status and the eligibility for taxation, which was not clearly articulated in the state code. We disagree with that. We are considering filing an appeal, and our attorneys, even as we speak, are working on that analysis. The appeal probably, if we file, will be shortly, in just a handful of days. So we will keep you advised. In the meantime, it relates to the truth in taxation. As Mayor will explain, we've been scrupulous about hitting all deadlines, even when we have to make our own forms that parallel what truth in taxation computerized forms do. And so tied with this decision on whether or not to appeal is the decision on whether we proceed with the public hearing under the truth in taxation process.
So the only thing I would say is, and we'll get into this with offline with when we were discussing new dates potentially, because if we're able to get an answer beforehand, that would be great for the planning commission, that there's a 10-day window that they have to notice prior to. So if it's not likely that we're gonna know, I think it's probably safest to reschedule.
Yeah.
That hearing, because if we are able to proceed, then our stuff is.
One of the other items is scheduling. Perhaps you can consider the planning commission to hold their meeting and say I know by law, we have to have this truth in taxation hearing at 6. So there's a way to work around this and work together to get them both done.
Alright, well, we'll discuss all that in time meetings, logistic meetings. Okay, so the next 2 items within the standing items, they're just brief updates to remind everybody where we're at, and that is. We like to make sure that we're calling out in every single meeting ever since budget season started. That we have been pursuing 2 parallel pathways. Because of our situation with the tax entity and the court situation, we've got 2 parallel pathways instead of just one, where most cities are just one. So we have already fully approved and adopted our budget for if we cannot proceed in truth in taxation. That has been available to the public at all times. It's online for download and review. We've had public hearings on that. It's available in the office and all of that. We have also been pursuing truth in taxation, making sure that we're hitting every single required deadline and everything we need to do should the court system say yes. They should be allowed to proceed through that process. And that is a second budget with the tax increase noted in it. And that also comes with the proposed property tax impact schedule. So those are C and D under the standing items. The proposed property tax impact schedule is a requirement for truth in taxation. We have it printed at every single public meeting. We have it printed in the office that we picked up. It is online for you to download and review. We have, been putting all this in the paper. We are trying to be as clear and transparent as possible. If anyone has any questions about budgets, truth in taxation, or the impact schedule, please write to us, call us. Our emails and our telephone numbers are all published in the paper, as well as on websites. So come into the office hours and give us a call and let us know so we can get your questions answered. That's it for our standing items. Number 3, organizational retreat. We're into our guest panel here with I believe Councilmember Hillen is going to introduce everybody.
Thank you, Mayor Waller. And I called it a retreat because, sorry.
I had a chat, just so you know.
Oh, excellent, welcome, Chad. That's one of our council members, so please he can join us. I insisted on calling this a retreat because we want to have a very productive, creative, open discussion with our panel members, and I will briefly introduce our panel members. As well as our facilitator, and then turn it over to our excellent facilitator. First, let me introduce our excellent facilitator. We have Christine. Christine is retired executive formerly with Amazon, did tons of strategic planning and working with groups. Upon retirement, she joined up on the transition team, played an instrumental role on the administrative committee for over a year, was responsible for our visions process. On to our panels, we have here other parents of the city. And they all contributed in fabulous and different ways. Duncan resides in the unincorporated community of Warren in northwestern Weber County. He's married, has 6 kids. He has done virtually everything you can do in terms of from incorporating numbers of new cities to serving as city council member, city manager, serving as city attorney. Let me go through the list of towns he incorporated. Are they here, Duncan?
Yeah.
Okay,
Over Mary Sutterville, Barton Valley,
okay.
and then the sad last week.
Yeah, so you've got 3 successful under your belt, 1 still to go. Duncan's dedicated his life to municipal service. He believes in the Jeffersonian principle. The best government is the one closest to the people that it serves. And he believes each local community should be empowered to direct their own future. His partner in setting up Marriott Sutterville is Bill Morris. Bill is a seasoned Tucson municipal administrator and attorney, extensive experience in city management, budget work, long-range community planning. He served key leadership roles, including city manager and senior administrative advisor. He's overseen capital projects, land use implementation, and day-to-day municipal operations. He was also an early advisor, especially through the transition period. We met often and really appreciated his guidance. And finally, Madison was also instrumental in the transition period. She was one of the transition team leads on public works. She is employed as our local administrative advisor from the Wasatch Front Regional Council. She gives direct governance, budgeting, and support to small Utah municipalities in the region. She also has hands-on experience having served as a city manager herself in a small city, Harlan, Nevada. She oversaw day-to-day operations, policy, and intergovernmental coordination. I'm proud to say she has a degree from the U undergrad and a master's in public administration from the U. So very much thank you for joining us, and Christine, take it away.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we have an agenda today, and I think aside from those beautiful introductions, I think we'd like to get into a category that we've coined the golden rules. And I think for the sake of our audience, which is primarily our council members, we are at an inflection point really in organizational design. And perhaps you've had a chance to take a look. I did some interviews with the group and wrote up a summary of some observations and recommendations. So perhaps that'll play into our conversation. But clearly the 3 of you have got extensive experience starting cities and working through organizational design processes. So knowing that that's the real nugget we're trying to solve for today, could we ask Bill, maybe for you to start us off with what you think are some things that the city council needs to really keep in the forefront of their mind as they're thinking through this change?
Sure. I think that and not be sitting totally from Duncan's notes that I saw.
They
were all about plagiarism. But, organization charts a good start, do you just be flexible on it? And a lot of times cities get wrapped up in trying to fix things that aren't broken. And look for where the weak spots are and focus on there. In your org charts, I'm nitty gritty, so I'm gonna get right into it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm flipping all into the page. The one that says 1.2 council administrators. It's looking like, I'm not sure what these are, so let me just fill that out. What is it, the council? Is administrator 1, 2, and 3, are these council positions?
I think the author intended them to be council.
So there's a couple models, West Haven City, when they incorporated the preliminary and Sladeville, they make their council members department heads. And so each council member was over a city department, and they were paid for that role. There were some strengths to that where you had an actual representative leading the department, accountable to the people that's voted in. That was one of the strengths. Some of the weaknesses of that model is that there was turnover, and if you lost your institutional knowledge when those department heads turned over, they were you trying to run again and didn't get elected, or didn't get elected, and then all of their knowledge was lost, and the new person had to come in not knowing anything. It was also, some of those people were maybe farmers, but then they were put into a public works capacity that they didn't know anything about, and then that created some disadvantages there. So with that form, we looked at doing just a minimal department head, 3 department heads. Some communities, and you're not going to need it, have 4 where they have a police chief as a department head, and he runs the police department. You're not going to have that. So if you have a professional administrator, I would look at your public works and engineering and getting your building official also as your public works director, kind of streamlining things. Just because building officials are so difficult to find and they're expensive. You can combine that position in the public works and wrap it all into a public works director, but also building official to maybe save you some money and streamline.
What is a building official?
A building official is somebody who's licensed by the city.
That's what Tyler Seaman does for us.
Yeah, what Tyler is. That's just an idea, you don't have to. Your shared services, that's really your administrative department. That's what your city administrator would do. Now, you look at city managers and city administrators, because I noticed throughout the document that you might not know the difference. Or of where it's sunk in. Well, on page 3, you have city manager / administrator. So, and Duncan can fill in here too. City managers are where you've written an ordinance that takes power from the mayor and vests that power in the city administrator. The mayor actually gets to vote in that case. So the mayor would be a voting member of the council. If power is taken from her or added to her, she gets to vote on the ordinance. But some people want to give some of that power to a city manager. I'll use an example of a city here, Weber County, that does that, and that's Washington Terrace. Okay, so Tom Hansen on Washington Terrace, he's a legitimate city manager where he has been vested in the executive powers of the mayor. In fact, most of them. So the mayor of Washington Terrace has the power to appoint people, the power to chair the council, power to pardon, and to be on some of the county committees and as the dignitary, or what do you call them, official, official.
Continue your thought, and I have a question.
Go ahead.
No, you were gonna say.
I mean, 4 years.
Mhm.
Before you.
Well, he was just gonna say administrators.
Yes, administrator, which is me and Mary Slaterville. I don't have the power from there. I only have powers that administratively assigned, and I work under the mayor as the mayor's staff. And so that's where you have the differences. The manager actually has the mayor executive power, city administrator executes the executive power through the mayor.
So for the 3, with limited exceptions, we, 5 members of the council, have not delegated to the mayor any real power yet. Other than statutory power she has, with limited exceptions we have, and that's one of the things we're here and struggling with. As a 6-member organized city council, is how to do that. So you mentioned the mayor right now, our mayor, except with limited exceptions, has no power. Other than statutorily, for example, we have not delegated to her authorities over any of the non-public safety related departments. One of the things we're talking about is how to do that and what to do, whether or not her keep it. So what you focused on, the one slide that we started with, is where we are without doing a resolution or ordinance granting any of its official powers. It was a unofficial act we did prior to incorporation. The mayor has some powers, she has a portfolio, and the 5 do. So I wanted you all to know that that's where we sit today. And one of our struggles that we're dealing with is, what next? Do we keep that model? Do we consider another model? Pros and cons of each model.
Can I jump in, I don't wanna dispute my brother, council member here, but we have some disagreements about how the power currently is distributed. This is the very first slide is how we've been working for 6 months.
So that's what I was, that was the informal distribution of power. Get out of the gate, do something.
Exactly, but let's go back and go to your opening statement. I have some questions, but I wanna get to Duncan, if you're done. Yes, okay, thanks.
So I think one of the most interesting things in response to the questions you're asking is, and I view it as I was talking to Kater before the meeting about, it's almost like a question of what's the best car, right? Well, it depends, the answer depends on who's asking and what the needs are, right? And when I had 6 kids all in school, it was like 4 bins there for the vehicles. And now I don't need that vehicle. Some of my neighboring people where I live that have ranchettes, that it's a pickup truck, you check the bales of hay and whatever. And so every city is so totally different, right? As to what employees they need and how to divvy out power and position and some responsibility amongst the elected officials and the city manager or administrator eventually. All of that depends on some initial analysis to some basic questions before you even start looking at what the options are, right? And there's nothing magical about it, but I have 6 principles, key points that I look at. And the first key point is focusing on getting all the revenue coming in, obviously from the reports and everything and reading the newspaper. You're obviously highly focused on getting the money into the policy. And the second point is limiting your initial expenses, especially ongoing expenses. It's one thing to reduce inclusion of expenses. But once you commit money to long-term ongoing expenses, you can't get that back so easily or redirect it to other purposes. Third point is, what are your top 2 or 3 action priorities, right? Sometimes you don't list it for the book. And the Marriott Slaterville on Bill and I looked at that company where we thought one of the top priorities wasn't something really magnanimous or firstly, it was just the people wanted to have a good process to go just get a building permit for their son or daughter to buy and build a house, right? And it was a tougher process at the county at that point. And so we realized, okay, that this is a priority, we need to deliver this to the people, that's what they want. And that's what their elected officials said they wanted. And so we put out a bid and we interviewed a whole bunch of people, and it was to retain basically an independent contractor, building inspector, building official. And it was just on a piece rate basis. We needed them, we paid them. And if we didn't need them, we didn't pay, right? And so again, we were holding firm or keeping our expenses low, but still accomplishing that priority, right? And that became part of my 4th point is developing systems. So that was our system to take care of that need, that priority that the city had, was have this guy
on standby, these building permits. Oh, and part of the question we asked each of the applicants was, how quickly can you turn around a building permit? The ones that said 5 business days or less, then we think about the ones that are any longer, we just scratch them with the list, right? Because it wasn't just having a building inspector, it was having long-term building permits around quickly. And then the fifth point is just building a plan, right? What's the plan? Some of these things we can take care of quickly. It only took us several weeks, right, to interview and figure out who that building inspector was. Some of the other things take a longer considerable period of time. Just build a plan, right? And then the plan is figuring out how to use your resources. Are those going to be independent contractors? Is it going to be this, piece rate building inspector? How are you going to use people, volunteers, money, whatever, to reach those priorities and other goals? And the sixth one is not completely intuitive in some respects, but it is, and for you guys, it certainly is you have to listen to and report to your residents, right? Because the very nature of cities, city governments, I wish we wouldn't call them cities, I wish we'd call them something, anything, like locally organized or local, some. Yes, communities, yeah, just basically it's a community organization, right? And in fact, as you know, probably as you eventually determine whatever the long-term name of your city is, it doesn't even have to have by state law the name city in it. It could just be community, it could be Ogden Valley community or anything else, right? But at any rate, you want to listen to them because I'm telling you, there's one city right now within about a 30-mile radius of where we're sitting that's not listening to their residents. They ignore their residents. I won't say too much more to include my determining this, but they're doing a very poor job of listening to their residents, and it's sad, right? Because the whole idea of this local governmental organizational structure that we have here is to help provide services to the residents, landowners, and if we're not using them, then that's the whole purpose of being. And the extra point I always have is what Bill is talking about is just leave stuff alone that's working, right? There's a limited amount of resources, time, money, effort, people, whatever, to throw the highest priorities. There's nothing left for things that already work. And if other people are providing them, leave them alone. If the Weaver Fire District's doing a great job, let them do that. If the sheriff's office is doing a great job and they're not overly charging you, let them keep doing it. Now, I'm not saying if there's a problem that develops, you don't look at options, I'm not saying that, but if it's not a problem, it's not a problem.
No, I think that's.
You've got local water and sewer companies and districts that are doing a great job, just like you doing it, not even.
Yes, please.
So I think that's the analysis I would do. I'd go through those 6 points. I would determine, how to marshal the resources and keep your commitments to expending money. I think that'll. And I think you've done a great job, a lot of those things already, right? You provided up the responsibilities, things that are needed. And I, one of the things during the incorporation process that I noticed was one of your, at least in my mind, one of your greatest needs is transportation, right? Roads, and have you funded, have you paid for it long term? So I was excited to hear that you got a grant for that. That's great. Get a big chunk of money to help, and more than anything else, you need to plan. You need to know what do we have, what do we need. And so that once you start making those decisions later, you'll be able to make even better decisions if you got this plan in place, and especially if over time you can decide what to fix when. Because one of the things that will bankrupt the city faster than any other is not keeping up on the roads, right? There's the city of Syracuse, kind of put it off a lot a number of years ago, literally almost bankrupted themselves. West Haven had a challenging situation where they realized, well, we're gonna grip on these roads, and it's counterintuitive, but unlike other things that we can put off and deal with later, you cannot put off and deal with roads because roads will catch up on you and wipe you out. Because you can have a section of road that if you put a little effort into it over 10 years, so they spend a little money here and a little money there to do a resurface or chip and seal or whatever. And you only spend $100,000 over a 10-year period, that things look great. If you do nothing for 10 years, you may spend $1 million.
Don't come your speaking our language, and unfortunately, you go back to your number two.
Yeah.
But your number one causes us a problem with number two,
Yeah.
which causes us a problem with number
Right,
eight.
which ties into number 3, which is the priorities, right? And you've got a part of that plan, I think, that if I understand correctly, the Wasatch Front Regional Council is helping with is, it's gonna help you determine which ones. Not only are the worst or the most helpful, but which would be the most cost effective to put money into now, maybe.
We're not gonna get that granularity, but we'll have a team.
Yeah, but at least you're better off with that plan than without it, regardless, right?
So now, take us through some highlights of what's on your mind?
Yeah, sure, I'll give that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, contribution. When looking at this, sort of what struck me is that I know that you know where your pinch points are already, right? It's only July and you know within each of your departments where it's gotten a little bit sticky. You know what problems are that already exist. And I think of all the communities I work with, so I work with 15 other communities throughout the Wasatch Front area. No one else has a manager or an administrator on staff, but each of those communities have prioritized funds in different ways. And it's fascinating to see the ways that they've done it. So we've got 2 communities kind of close to you in Western Weaver County that without managers or administrators have gone and prioritized funds for planning assistance. So they have in-house city planners. We've got Hooper with a full-time planner and we've got Plain City with a part-time planner. And then we've got a community down in Davis County that has prioritized public safety. They have their own municipal police department with a police chief and officers in-house. So it kind of just goes to show the range of where each community chooses to prioritize those funds. And I think it looks different city to city, and Huntsville will look different than Ogden Valley, Hooper looks different than Sunset. Each of these communities are really diverse in what their needs are. And so I know that you know what the pinch points are, and that's kind of what I was hoping I would challenge you to think about of where do you think you could guide those funds to best serve the city. I'm a proponent for the administrative model. I like an administrator in looking at each of these options. What struck me in all of the different, regardless of where the city wants to go with an org chart, I think that there are a lot of opportunities to improve communication. Because what will happen is you will see a breakdown in communication regardless of which model the city chooses. So if department heads are then allocated to council members, I think that there is always a risk that, you will become very siloed in what you do without that person in between the council and the mayor and those departments. And I think you run the risk of having a lot of breakdown in communication between each of these areas. I think a manager can help, but you still have to have a really clear strategy of how, will the reporting structure, right? Will the manager report directly to the mayor? How will the council feel comfortable to feel involved in that process? I mean, it can be as granular as a weekly report. The council like to see a weekly report from a manager or an administrator to make sure that they understand what's been going on with the mayor throughout that week, to make sure that they feel like that communication is really strong. And so I think regardless of which model the council wants to opt for, I think looking at how to improve those communication channels so that there aren't those breakdowns and everyone has sort of a really strong understanding of what's happening department to department. And you're already doing this now, so you can kind of think about, how do you feel about your other council members' areas and those sort of silos? Do you feel like you have a really good understanding of what the other council members are doing and or how could that be improved? And if it were to all funnel to a single person, what would that look like? Like best practice, what would you like to see out of a manager or administrator?
Thanks. Really nice summary, nice point on a particular issue that seems like more the subtext. The communication issue in terms of word models. So did you have a question?
I did in Madison. Are any of the cities you're serving right now, do they have a management model similar to what we currently have, where council members, to include the mayor or not, are administered. Let's just use that verb, administering a department right now.
Yeah, a lot.
And who are they and what are their successes and failures?
I see the communication breakdown, and that's why I bring it up. It's a lot of the cities that I'm working with are using the term liaison, so they're utilizing council members as a liaison to each department. What I haven't seen, most of the communities I'm working with have a point of contact, an employee, a full-time employee. It doesn't necessarily have to be a department head, but there is at least a singular point of contact. But I can see that working here with the professional services that you have contracted, so any of your interlocal services. And I think the communication breakdown is just more apparent in those communities because they don't have a single department head to be able to report to, you know, the liaison or the mayor, depending on how they're set up. I think every city that I work with right now does have an in-house public works director. But everybody else has a similar model in terms of what you're outsourcing to. So I don't know a single city engineer that's in-house with the communities I'm working with. No one has an in-house attorney, but the sort of rare ones are the planners. So those communities have really identified growth and issues relating to growth, and they have decided that they can outsource part of that community development role. So the engineering, the building official, the permitting and inspections, but they really want somebody that's like pretty dynamic in almost like in an economic development planning realm, so that they can have somebody on staff day in and day out to address those, because that's what they see the most. And so thinking about Proctor Valley, what do you see the most, and where would those dollars go first?
Okay, follow on, and I promise I'll delay asking another question till a little later. There may be for all three of you. I'm the statute geek, self-described on city council. I'm the one who remembers that we wrote stuff in municipal code and whatever. And so in this particular case, Utah statute has very specific language about what the 5 canons should do. Paraphrasing. Perform or supervise the executive or administrative functions and duties of the city. How have you seen that you mentioned they choose to, one of your cities said liaise, so did they, in their resolution or their ordinance where they solved this problem? How specific, how not, did they tie themselves in knots over this or did they simply go, it's okay, go liaise? And how important or not is this question? I'm asking that of all three of you to be specific when we make a decision about if it's us, what does powers and duties mean?
Right.
If we delegate to her, what is powers and duty?
Yeah, and maybe I can jump in first. And it's a tough question, and you could probably take 2 hours just talking about that, right? And there's a lot of nuances in state code, but I think that the important thing is that the advantage to this form of government, 6-member council form of government, the advantage is that it's flexible. The disadvantage is that it's flexible. And so, unlike the council mayor form of government, where it's pretty clear, mayor does this, council does that, separation of powers, that's what we're used to at the state and federal level. You're more akin to British Parliament, and instead of 600 and some odd members of Parliament, wherever they used to stuff, it's just 6 of you, not wherever it is. But it's a parliamentary form of government, right? We've got the legislative and executive kind of mixed up, right? Mixed up. And what it really is, it's whatever you create it, whatever you make it, whatever you agree on it, to a certain degree. I mean, there's something like this, obviously, in state statute. But again, I think it's what is it you're trying to create, what works, what helps you accomplish your goals, and that may morph depending on that. And at some point, you do want to codify it in your city code and say, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we define and determine this flexibility. And it's almost better at first to just kind of maybe to a certain degree agree to disagree, and that's just some kind of basic stuff. And hey, we're gonna fill in the details as we go. Then one of the advantages is you can't really mess up, right? so much as you can with another form of government, like the council mayor, it's like, you know, the mayor really should have been doing that, or, oh, the council really should have been doing that. Here, it's largely whatever you agree on. So you can, I think, focus more on what needs to be done, how we best accomplish it. And then codify it as you go along at some point. It's almost premature to codify probably at this point because you don't know, right? And then you don't, otherwise you might keep changing it every 6 months, so.
You go ahead.
Well, it just ties in real closely with this is because the other part I think we have to remember is listening to the residents. Because we voted for a certain type of government where we would distribute that authority across all 5. And I don't want to stray too far from that.
Yeah, if you feel like you have a mandate from the community, you should follow it, sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what we ran on. That was the form of government we selected. It's in my understanding.
In terms of the 6-member council, the statute says, and we have done nothing to disturb that, the mayor is the chief executive to whom all employees report. And confusion lies in the broad grant power to the city council members who hold the residual powers that are not granted to the mayor, or that they have taken back or given to the mayor, if their powers defined by those very terms. So how do you see the mayor working in these situations? Number one. Number two, if and when we hire a manager or administrator, where would that logically report? By statute, the mayor has the reporting responsibility, but the statute is actually somewhat silent in that special management role, the city manager. The alternative is perhaps having that manager report to the council, which from management experience is kind of hard to do. So
I'll start off really quickly and then defer to my colleagues here, but I've been both, right? I've been a city manager in South Weaver, so I reported to the council as a whole. I actually exercised all the day-to-day executive powers in the city. Then I've been a city administrator working under the direction of the mayor, Henry Slagle, and also under the direction of Mayor Perry, right? And that was kind of an interesting one because that was a 6-member from government, but my title was city administrator. Typically, well, a lot of it can go either way, right? So I've been in 2 different forms of government and 2 different roles, and different roles even within the same form of government, right? And I tell you, I much prefer as the professional to be a city administrator, exactly who I report to, exactly what my powers are. And you guys make the policy, I'll carry it out, I'll follow it. The toughest assignment I have is South Weaver, where I was the chief executive, right, on a day-to-day basis. Reporting to the council as a whole, and sometimes 3 council members thought one way, and the 2 council members plus the mayor thought a different way. And it's a tough spot to be in. I'm trying to do the will of everybody that's tough, right? But what I'm saying is, I don't think I'm different in most regards to very professionals. I think most professionals would rather be a city administrator with defined policy, defined duties. And you don't put somebody in a pickle, you don't create the potential for in-house fighting. And then it's very carefully craft what that all is and what to do and multi-level company sure does.
So I'll pick up with that from left off, talk about your administrative code, the 6-member thing. So you think about the way our state has it set up in the code that you recited, Dawn, is the 6-member form of government is one of the few last vestiges of real municipal authority left in the code that the legislature has yet to strip from you. So you get to write it however you want, and that would be the fun part, right, in your administrative code. And what you need to look for is where And I'm picking up from Duncan here because I feel for his frustration. I watched him go through some of that. I've been through some of it myself where who's the six-headed dragon that I answer to? And fortunately, Mary Sladeville, the way they did it is they picked the strongest was the mayor. But then they also gave me the city attorney. And so we're one of the few cities where you have a full-time attorney and also who's the administrator. And so that's where I get caught up because it says in the code, I have to provide legal services equally to the council and the mayor. It hasn't been a problem over the years, but I can see it. And so what I asked you to do is you write the administrative code, and I'm updating Mary Sladeville's right now. It's 27 years old. We've updated it multiple times, and I'm putting my 27 years of experience into this new model, where the city administrator may not, who's taking my place when I retire, maybe somebody young and new who doesn't have much city experience. And there's a department head who's going to be designated the senior department head who's over the other departments, and it's actually not the city administrator. Does that make sense, Duncan?
Yeah.
Where I'll just kind of keep going down that line. So our public works director is going to have 16 years of tenure and know a lot more about the institution and how things run than bringing in a brand new administrator and putting him as the boss of somebody who's been there 16 years. That department head becomes this supervising department, even though there's a separate administrator who's just performing their statutory and ordinance functions. So that's what I'm building into the new code, and you're not there for that because you're all retirees.
We're all 6 months old.
Where you're building it in is where you need the checks and where you need the balances. Okay, so you have your administrator or your department head answer to the mayor, but what checks do you have on the mayor if you get one that's crazy? You're lucky, you have a great mayor. Duncan and I have experienced some very difficult mayors that have different agendas, and the council is left out of the loop. Information's cut off to you. Where's your checks and balances? How do you keep that? And so the council needs to have authority over hiring and personnel matters for the department heads, complete control.
Of department heads at that level, but not necessarily below.
Yeah, and it's up to you how you want to do below. So assistant department heads, maybe you want to have control over them too. How much do you want to delegate? Where do the checks and balances need to be? Because you have to have a check on the mayor's power, there needs to be checks on the council, from council members going off and doing things on their own and not as the parliament committee that you are. So look for where checks and balances need to be placed to keep human nature's darkest problems from arising.
Do you see that in your experience? Do the cities you support have that in the legislative function of the council? In other words, if you use a congressional or legislative, there are oversight committees of public works, of X, Y, and Z. Have you seen that as a mechanism for the check and balance?
There is oversight. You just gotta be careful putting those committees into your code, because then all of a sudden you need to have the open public meetings act.
Right, I mean, nothing is easy. In fact, it's designed to be
Design.
absolutely inefficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a hand raised over there, Kathy.
Chad, I'd like to make a comment.
Awesome.
Yeah, just to comment on that last little bit there. I'm not sure who was speaking, one of the 3 panel people. I can't tell who it is, but my point to it is that I very much agree with those last statements there. Something that as I've researched the importance of a brand new city starting out, how important it is to have those checks and balances in place and to develop that foundation early on in a new city that so often from the advice I've been given on that is that, you start off, and as the 6 of us know, we're given very little to be successful in our first 6 months. And we've done a remarkable job, I think, up to this point to be where we're at. But this next chapter, as we build this next area, I think it's very important to have those checks and balances and also the balance of powers in place. And the advice I've been given that it needs to really be a 2-year period to just make sure you're settled in and that we get a little bit more seasoned in what we're doing. And we understand that when one of the things that I've been warned over and over with, and this really goes for all of us, and you know, whether we're city council or the mayor, that we don't know what we don't know. And so it's very easy to give away certain responsibilities or powers, and the advice I've been given and what they've kind of warned me to is just be careful in your first 2 years of what you give away, because once it's given away, it's very difficult to get back. And I think there's some of the things that have been said so far, and this is very, very keen on that. And I think that's an important area for the 6 of us to be aware of going forward.
And to build on Chad's comments about communication and how it breaks down. One thing that I found helpful is the weekly staff meetings. So rather than me as the city administrator doing reports and all that, we do a weekly staff meeting. It's always on Monday. It's 11 because mine would come in and you've got all of the messages over the weekend and all of the problems that have happened, and it gives you 2 hours to process those. At 11 o'clock, I have a sheriff deputy there that's a lieutenant over the area. Somebody from the fire district, whether it's the fire chief, fire marshal, or the deputy fire marshal, fire chief. They're present, they're there to coordinate. We make them brief, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour if there's complicated things, but they're typically 30 minutes. And I take brief minutes on them, not like your council meeting, but just like one line on each topic, discuss. All the department heads talk what's going on in their department. I talk about what's going on in the overall city. The mayor talks about what's important and what things they want to accomplish over the short term. We have our finance officer there, and he does a monthly financial report that they go out, and then those minutes are sent out to all the council members every Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning if I can't get to proofreading them. So the minutes come to me, but by the city reporter who takes them, and then I proofread them, add some stuff that I feel. So I guess I am kind of doing some reporting. And then it all goes out to the council members, because we only have the mayor and then the council president, vice president there, because you don't want to have a quorum. But your staff meeting or becomes a meeting, so you're only going to have maybe the mayor and mayor pro tem. That's your staff meeting. And then an email out staff meeting minutes every week. And the council member knows exactly what happened at staff meeting Monday, Tuesday, what's happened over the weekend. What's the problems, whether it's like up there in Huntsville where we have some water problems and some really big emergency issues going on, or whether it's a construction project or working on with your roads, what the problems were there, whether it's a park issue or getting ready for your 4th of July celebration or whatever your community event is, and every council member gets to see what status is and keep involved and done.
Well, yes, okay, and I.
It's in place right off of what you were saying. Under most of these models, we have in administrative seats, some council members. And when you talk about having a staff meeting, and those council members are acting in a managerial capacity, not as council members. What you do about the public rules.
Yeah.
And you divide it, or every time you have a staff meeting. You have to have you have 24 hours.
This was my question.
There we go.
Because you're not organized in the 6 council
Yeah.
fashion. So if we follow the model and there's more than 3 administrators coming out of council, then we got that problem.
Yes, you
Yeah.
would.
And
Duncan, I would think that violates the open meetings act for them to have more than 3 council members.
Yeah, if there's 3 voting, yes, there's a very staff in there and 2 ready.
That's the next.
Yeah, there are 2. Yeah, that's 3 voting. Then it's, yeah, it's everything.
I love it, but I'm gonna keep coming out of the Air Force where we had weekly activity reports on darn near everything, one sentence. So you're speaking my language, Bill, but in our model, that would be, in our present state, it would be impossible without violating the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah.
But in our future states, depending on what we decide to do, we could do that.
I have a quick question, just to change the topic a little bit. Comment on employees, full-time versus part-time, and contractors. And the various obligations we, after 6 months, face under each of those models.
There was comment about no city engineer works in any of the cities you work for. I actually have an engineer who was the public works director in one of the cities. I did not see that as an advantage. In fact, I saw it as a disadvantage because working with a contracted engineer firm, they had multiple engineers there. And the engineer that was the city engineer had their small specialty in just sewers. But once it got outside the water or roads, or we had to hire somebody anyway. And so I just agree with you that you don't need a full-time engineer on your staff.
Do you think we're right to have full-time employees?
I don't know yet, with your budget situation the way it is, I'd say spend the next year or two, just have some part-time administrator, part-time department heads that can fill in and help take the load off of you as a council member. It must be stressful. How long can you keep going before you're going to reach burnout?
I burned out. Which is why in the budget is a full-time public works manager, not director.
And I saw this as in the startup. If you start up there, started to have lots of volunteers. Everybody's going on. We had volunteers that we assigned to do gardening. And it was great. They did the community gardens, they did the Tree City USA program.
You were volunteer.
Yes.
But eventually volunteers for it.
And
Some of the ones that you picked up, Mayor's Camp.
Well, the downside that I'm starting to see now too, is that we're spending so much time on operational things. We're not spending time looking forward and doing any of the strategic planning and work that we should be doing.
And you don't know what you don't know.
And we don't, I know it's a lot.
You have a professional administrator who's part-time and got seasoned experience, or a public works person, or
Right.
planning person. Those are your key three: planning,
Of course.
public works, and administrator. And it would be nice if you had a building official and your public works was full-time, and then maybe the other two part-time. But I don't know what you can find. It's a lot of money to get a building official these days.
We're exceptionally happy with who we chose, which is through the.
And Tyler Straight.
It's working.
Theirs. Yeah.
To Duncan's point, Greg was
Yeah,
not
if it's working, then leave it.
Are we a big city? Are we a little city? Are we a big municipality, a little municipality? The reason I'm asking this question is you're too small to need something. Everybody's unique.
Yeah.
We're the second largest by square miles. We have 104 miles of road. How many do you have?
We have probably 15, 20.
Right,
miles of road.
we have a divide in which we have to plow. We have the single largest chunk of our budget is roads. We're unique. So I argue that whilst we're only 7,200 residents, we are big in many important ways.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Dawn, and Mary said about 2,200 people. Okay. Population, 15, 20 miles of road, not much. But you got 2 freeway interchanges. You're the only city in Beaver County that has 2 freeway interchanges. Ogden only has 1.5.
Right.
They got 31st Street and then that weird 24th Street.
Yeah,
Right.
and the sewer plant for most of
So
the.
you got
the sewer plant.
the sewer plant, you got Weaver Basin's massive diversion facilities. You've got 2 state roads, SR 39 actually comes up here, and you've got 1900 West, which is state road 126. And then you got I-15. So with those three transportation facilities, you have a daytime population over 100,000 people.
Wow.
And so that's why Mary Centerville has an administrator and full-time employees that cover department heads, because you got 100,000 people every day across the city, getting in accidents, hitting the mayor's cab. Every problems, domestic violence. most of my domestic violence cases when I'm prosecuting with people on the side of the road with their gas station, like.
Not your residents, they were people driving down it. Not gonna get tired of it.
You know, I had more of it that was people passing through. And all sorts of problems that creates just by the transit nature of that. I often tell, I think I've told Duncan this before, the city of industry in California has like 500 residents. But it encompasses mass warehouses of Google and Amazon and all sorts of stuff. And has hundreds of thousands of people working there a day. And that's kind of how I feel the next little while.
Wow. What do you got to add?
I don't think it's in this packet, maybe it is, but in part of the materials that we reviewed prior to coming, I saw sort of an if or, so if, you know, depending on the budget situation, through the taxation, depending on what funds are available for hiring, I saw sort of a part-time administrator or potentially a full-time community development director. And when thinking about that, I was sort of thinking about all the hats that a smaller city administrator wears. And I think that a lot of what you can get out of a full-time administrator will cover parts of your community development, will cover parts of other people that you will need in the future. But if you can find someone that's really dynamic and can kind of wear a lot of those hats, there'll never be a replacement for that 15, you know, tenure 15 plus public works director or somebody that has, you know, long rooted history in a city. But I think that they will be a great point of contact for, you know, if the mayor is their direct point of contact, lessening that burden on each of the council members in their areas. And so when I think about part-time administrator, one, who are you going to get? Who's looking for, you know, is somebody bringing in the right background and has the right experience that is looking for a part-time role? Is this somebody at the end of their career that's looking to sort of back down out of a full-time role? Who's out there that role would appeal to? If you put it out there and you're not getting a great response, like I see this time and time again, where the cities will go out and part-time and they're just not getting the response they want because the workforce isn't looking for the part-time. So looking for, you know, bang for your buck, I think a full-time administrator, you're gonna be able to get somebody who can wear multiple hats and hopefully cover some of these other areas that you need.
Yeah, I mean, in these small cities. I was usually the city administrator, city attorney, part-time economic development director, and obviously not big projects, but you know, if I brought in the MacRec, I thought that was cool, you know, whatever. But there are people that can wear multiple hats, yeah. You know, one city I was at, where I was city manager, I had a part-time prosecutor and to keep me out of conflict of interest, they had a part-time attorney. But that attorney was not versed in land use law, but I am, so I just hired myself a land use attorney. And it was fine, I hired somebody, right? But you gotta be careful with conflicts and stuff and some of it, but there's a multitude of people that wear multiple hats, and it's just a matter of finding them. I agree.
Have you thought of maybe, I mean, with your financial situation, like seeing Huntsville's going to board over there and having a part in creating that, because I've been their legal counsel for years. Maybe soliciting some donations for your administration to function 1 to 2 years. And going out to the community and say, hey, here's where we are financially, we can't get the tax commission on board. This legislature's, you know, kind of left us, and you know, holding the bag. Can we count on you for a donation for our administrative functions of our 3 main departments to start off?
We have some residents that step forward with that idea. Yeah, they were, you know, they're watching the truth and taxation process as well. They are realizing they considered setting up a 501c3, but realize they can ask for direct donations to the city. Absolutely, yeah.
You guys were provided our budget, draft budgets, right?
Huntsville.
Ours. Were you guys given the budgets? Okay.
Not before it's.
Okay,
Or
sorry.
so I need to look at it.
Okay. Yeah,
I know you're.
if we can do truth with taxation, and I think Madison alluded to this, we have a robust money set aside for some chunk of W-2 employees. If we can, It's much skinnier, but it's not insubstantial. It's, well, it's almost $300,000 worth, and we on that almost 400,000, which we just have to decide what out of that.
I have just. Well, one of those questions, looking back at having lived through startup cities, having helped some small cities. What are the things you regret, lessons learned? What they should have done differently?
Man, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I actually, I think that's kind of weird to say it. I look at the cool stuff that we did to us. Great, like we did that. I'm sure there's things we messed with. You're always in the learning curve, right? That, I mean, even the principles I talked about earlier, are things that I learned and worked well. And I mean, one of the best things we did in Married to Slavery when we started there is we realized, man, we're not getting all of our sales tax revenue. Let's go after it. Let's get it, you know, and Ogden City was getting some, Weaver County was getting some, and all we had to do is go get signatures from people. And stuff. Oh, dang it, how they get that revenue instead of us, you know, they'd sign for them. We'd give it to the tax commission, and we started at least stopping leading it with all of it. And so I feel good that we started right away doing that. And then we went right away doing grants, right? And we want another thing that consumer wants, they wanted the nature fund, they wanted some trails, and whatever, so. We ended up doing a general plan, a trails plan, and it helps because as UDOT did, and redid 12th Street and 1900 West, we already had a plan that said we want a trail to go underneath, and so they built it, and it cost the city less that way, and we went after we got ourselves designated as an open space city because our representative in the House was Marty Stevens, who was the speaker, and we didn't have any money, but Marty ran a bill to declare us as open space city. And since we were focused on that and had trails and things planned, and we got the designation, we turned around and applied for an open space grant. We got the open space grant ahead of West Haven and Ogden because we had the designation of open space city. And Ogden and West Haven asked us, well, how'd you get that designation? Well, we made it up. We can't. It can't, and if the legislature passes it counts, right? And so we were creative with what we had, what our resources were, and we went after it. And we probably made some mistakes, but I don't regret trying it, doing it. And sometimes, because we didn't know any better, we were successful, right? And that's what I would say is just go after it. Right, and if you have any, I'm not saying if you feel it might be a legal ramification, somebody comes very change, right? But don't let anything hold you back. You know, just run, go for it, go for the end, and it's amazing what you can get. If anything, I regret not doing even more of that. Right? Yeah. And because if you get motivated people, and I'm not saying it's all about brands and all that, right? That's good. But sometimes you just use your resources. I mean, I was in Perry and we really wanted this one park. We already owned the land. We wanted to have 2 soccer fields. And we had a bunch of parks impact fees, and we had some regular general fund, but we're still short. And all we needed was a way to grade the land with the least money possible, and then realized, hey, we got a gravel pit right here in the city. And we went and talked to them and said, hey, is there any way you can cut us the deal on, you know, you guys working for us to grade these 2 fields for soccer play? It's gonna be our centennial field because who owns it? We're gonna see it's gonna be currently for a whole 100 years. And they said, well, yeah, well, we get these laser guided machinery, and we can level both those fields, and our guys need experience anyway, we won't even charge it. And they did all of that, and we calculated, I don't know what that was, so it's like $50,000-$60,000 worth of work easily, right? And they put it in, and we ended up with this really nice park, which is still there today. And we had a lot of volunteer work and everything else, but what I'm saying is our resources are not always money and volunteers and people. Sometimes it's a business, it's a gravel pit, it's a, I don't know what it is. But people are amazing and they're willing to help if you identify those chances.
Great.
I think that I identified 3 missed opportunities, but I would have gone back and done. Actually, I'm very similar. One is, it doesn't pertain to you, but it will. It's gonna be on the horizon. You're worried about getting employees and getting this set up. The problem is when you get employees, some of the most difficult things that you have to deal with is personnel matters. And so get your policy manual, streamline it. Ours was too complicated. We adopted a model from the public government trust. They don't even do the model anymore. I had to go through it and to make it simpler because it was just so ridiculously complicated. The write up an employee or to discipline things. You're gonna have personnel issues that come up that just come out of nowhere. And if you caught with your pants down, it's a mess and you're in lawsuits. Next is, as much as I enjoyed Mary Slaterville's first mayor and Keith and how strong he got that community going, and we missed the opportunity of some technological indigenization things. We could have been digitizing documents, digital archiving and all of that all along. And here we are 27 years into it. Now trying to do it. With that technology, there's app-based programming out there, different things that you can involve your community more. So that's my next one's community involvement. Where got a website. I think our website is C plus S, but when it comes to the code administration, it's an A. And but the interaction between the residents through the website is difficult, and we're working on it. There's ways and new technology where you can get apps that send out messages, people can sign up for messaging. I think we miss that. And the problem that's created is residents will say, what's going on? We don't know what's going on. How do we stay informed? And I'm doing my best with a newsletter, with citizen committees, with our meetings and all of our information, but how do you get it out there? And I think no matter whatever you do, you're gonna have residents saying, well, I didn't know. And they residents, some of them want it spoon fed to them, and I don't know how to baby food a resident. I can put the information out there and rely on them being accountable to digest it. It can do all that I have and still residents are frustrated. And that's something that you're gonna have to go into and try to figure out.
We're living into it already.
We didn't know that.
And look at all the stuff they're doing, the information out, posting symposiums and everything. And still,
Never.
Well, it's never the right time. I think residents at different times are ready for different information. And we just have to keep circulating it because it's important that when they're ready, they know where to go to get it. So if we could keep putting it out there.
So it's a constant.
It is a constant.
Take it as a constant education process. You're constantly teaching. And since I was raised by two educators, I said, okay for me to deal with. And so I'm not frustrated with residents when they can say I didn't know. So I'll take out a few days of teaching. The other thing is, and I would break out on your current startup portfolio, just because Duncan highlighted how important roads are. We've got public works, but I break out roads separately. And then I go to LTAP, which is a resource that didn't even come up that you might not even know about. LTAP needs to come up and do your assessment on all of your roads. Then go to the Madison, Wausau Regional Council, or whoever this is. LTAP is
They have through Weaver County.
Oh,
They did.
okay.
The one out of USU.
Yeah,
they did.
They did. Get them doing that study, and that makes that Hoover Transportation General Master Plan, or transportation.
Thank you. We've already got a 4-year plan on what needs maintenance.
Good.
Based on the OTAP.
By doing that, Mayor, Donna's put you in a position where you can go financially. You're limited right now. You have a plan.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing that you could do. That's not a blind spot for you.
What we fortunately and unfortunately, and there's parts of the North Hub didn't provide in the old Snow Basin Road, which
I'm sorry, that's gonna be difficult. So
which fiscally is, I have more to tell to council later.
So
But we're not unaware of
Good.
parts of it.
Go to the Wasatch Regional Council and get their map on what the road classifications are, whether it's arterial or collector.
We have to,
All right, and then go and find the roads that should be on there as arterial or collector, because then you can get county and state funding and make sure they're on there, because some of the roads we had in Merrick Slate Road were left off. And they weren't on them, but once they get our order, they weren't on the plan, so we had to make a petition and a request, and then had to go through a process to get them designated. That could take a year or so.
we got a little ahead of our headlights. And we backed off rightly so. We actually applied for a grant through WACOG. And I thought we had a good chance to do it, but what we discovered was we did not inherit good traffic data and other things. On a connector road that we probably would have got funded, but I turned it off because frankly, we didn't have good traffic studies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we have really good knowledge of what we know about the roads. And we'll know a lot more in the next 2 years.
One of the biggest things is road school every year. And if you had a public works person, they go to road school every year, that's where they're meeting all the contacts. and-
I paid Bill to say public works manager 17 times during for a reason.
They're my right hand person,
They need to be ours.
and they do more work than I do,
Mhm.
and I do a lot of work.
Mhm.
But they're managing the projects, you know, our public works person was spent all weekend getting a pump that had gone down fixed. So this neighborhood could get restored secondary water today when the pump went down Saturday. I mean, they're coming in on weekends and their time off. They put in a lot.
So can you explain what a weekend or time off is? That's a costume.
So Madison, you wanna take us through some of what you think
Sure.
we might have done differently?
Yeah, one that's coming to my mind is continuity work or succession planning, and I think you're at a stage with the city right now where you're still right to do it. And I think as you start to think about how you're going to pass offs to employees, future employees, other council members. I experienced the retirement of a public works director and a city clerk in my time as city manager, and that was really eye-opening for me. It was very challenging to learn just how much I had all these people. And I had not done enough work. Knowing that their retirement was coming, I did not do the work I needed to do to make sure that they sat down and broke some stuff down. And so that was really challenging when rehiring their replacements. You're gonna go through a lot of turnover. You're not gonna hire the right people every single time. And so how do you pass the knowledge you currently have? You all have been working for much longer than the time that the city has been incorporated. You've been working for 1, 2, 3, 4 years prior. How can you document that work to make sure that you are equipping those employees with the most power and knowledge possible? When I left my role, I left an almost 30-page manual for my position. And I know this was years ago. I know that it's still being used today. The city clerk in that city still calls me to ask me something that she read in that manual about, what I had written down. And to know that it's still being utilized is fantastic. It can be as simple as just passwords and processes. I left in the height of ARPA and CARES Act, so all COVID federal funding and all the federal obligations with that money was huge. And so my role was open for a number of months. They've since hired and lost other city managers. And so, all of this, the fluctuation of employees, they've always been able to sort of come back to this manual. And it's now bound and they do regular updates to it. There's sections that are no longer relevant. They've had to add new sections, but could you create something like a master city binder and try to include everything that you individually have working on, and then here. And writing, exactly. That has been the single best thing that I've ever done, and it's also been the hardest thing that I've not done. It was very difficult to manage the loss of employees without really strong.
And to dovetail off that, that's great. I think the job responsibilities is important about me, in addition to like Because there's so many things happening, it's easy to assume that somebody else is doing something that inadvertently got missed. And I read a book 25 years ago, it's called E-Myth, and it was about why all those successful companies failed, with the big internet boom and everything. It was a lot because when you expand quickly, or when you expand, in your case, in ways that you just can't anticipate, or grow in ways that just people see happening, then things get dropped. And the example was like a pizza company, and there were two guys. At first, they answered the phones and made the pizzas and ordered the materials and whatever, and did the taxes. But then when they added the third, and fourth, and fifth, sixth guy, and they were expecting everybody to keep doing everything, at some point somebody stopped filing the taxes, somebody stopped ordering the materials, whatever. And so instead, what they should have done is taken maybe 8 or 10 job responsibilities. So, okay, for right now, you do 4, I'll do 5, whatever. And then, we hired a guy, so you give him one of yours, and I'll give you one of those. And still, all the things are listed, nothing's getting missed. I think is an important concept too, is not just who's over community development, but what are all the things within community development, and who's doing it, and how are we dividing them up without missing anything. So you don't miss tracking a grant, or having it the right form file. Or when I started one of my new cities years ago, one of the things I found out is nobody had paid bills for 3 months before I got there. And nobody had filed essential reports for the state government. And one of the last letters I opened was the state tax commission saying they were no longer going to send us tax revenue until we reported as to how we could get everything caught up. And so the mayor came in at the end of the day, because he was a school teacher as well. And on the first day of order, he said, "So what'd you find?" I said, "Well, I got all the bills laid out for the treasurer to pay." And I said, "But I got this letter from the state tax commission. What are we gonna do about that?" "Well, I got this letter ready for you to sign there, saying here's what we're gonna do to fix it." And we decided, we smelled it, right? And we started getting our money coming in. And it's like, what are we doing? And so I don't even know why I got off of that tangent, other than don't miss things, right? Everything's gotta be on your list. Yeah.
Well, so if I can just to add in here, because as you see how we're currently working, beyond burnout, maybe things like that. 3 out of the 5 council members, their term ends next year. Because we're starting, so they're 2 years. And so we've got, if we're not hiring anybody, who's doing all that? And it's quite a bit of stuff. I mean, look at who's. So that's, been my main focus, is coming at this with a very clear delineation of roles and responsibilities, who's doing what, who goes where, what does it mean to do that, all of that. Because even if we were to stay status quo, as one of my council members had mentioned, for the first 2 years, 3 of them are not.
Honestly,
But looking at me.
It's been a really great conversation. Are there any more questions? Chad, I know you're on the phone, and Peggy, Katie, Don, Jen, anything else you want to ask while we have our panel here?
Did Jen have a schedule?
Not.
What I was hearing, and you recapped, I don't know if I nailed down your exact suggestion, but it sounded like start with if you can afford it, a full-time city administrator, and then look at the public works. Is that sort of a sense of where we should go?
I think try finding part-time. So,
City
yeah, I need to,
administrator,
especially if that,
start there, and then if it does.
I would focus your full-time on your community development director, because you look at the situation in your city is, you're all planning based. That's one of the big reasons you incorporate,
Yes.
so
Yes.
make that person, that's your focus, that's progress. Is somebody young who can maybe be there for a while. Right, city managers are transient, they're typically, you can tell, they only stay around about 5 years, is the average life of a city administrator.
I was 8 years at city.
And so.
Yes, that's good advice, because that is why we, one of the 2 driving forces behind our corporation. I know every city's probably different, but it's people
And
felt
that's
they
one
were
of the
listened to.
questions, and that's when the residents are nervous.
I'm
what's
nervous.
going in next to me.
Yes.
The reason is because they didn't know from the county, because there wasn't a lot of communication. now there's, the last thing you want them to say is the city is now on. And you're doing your best, because if you have somebody here dedicated as a community development director that's doing all the city planning, there's a one-stop person to call. That's your primary focus on getting somebody hired for that position.
Yeah, it's almost like in your job request, it's in your official request or not, it's, you know, other skill sets preferred, right? Somebody can come in, not just be the full time, just the folks. But it can also be some technology development, that together, why not? And I think they're so critical in hiring these, you gotta have good, you gotta have a guy that, you know, being a city manager or whatever people you trust that really, that you know what the needs of your community are too, right? You've got to people ties. Right, but you want that to really count. You want to hit home, right?
Yeah, but your planning person, somebody new, that you can mentor and shape.
Sure.
And I remember we went to a road school once and Seattle city's manager was there and he said, the first thing I do with my engineers when I get them is I have to put them back to the training because they've been mentally disabled by college. You need to teach them what Seattle's transportation system is about, and our system, engineers are designed to make things go faster. Seattle, we want to slow everything down. We want traffic calming, we want these other things that are not. Yeah, you're that way with the plan. Yeah, you want, and you've been very knowledgeable about what we want you to be planned. Get somebody in here that won't tell you how to do it, but you can tell them how to do it. And they know and can figure it out and then implement that. That's what you're looking for in the hiring process. And then Dawn's is the most important next. And whether that's full or part-time, or whether Tyler was under that person, or I don't know. Dawn needs help with public works and the sewers and the other things going on are gonna backfire. You've got some time because those things break over time, but they break, and when they break, it's bad. So that's your next person, your last person will be your administrator.
Okay.
Do you think differently or?
Do a little bit. I don't necessarily disagree. I don't think that's a bad path. I would just need caution to be mindful about scope creep. Like I can see that person will end up being a quasi administrator and they might be a little disgruntled if they don't have a, salary to match or what they're a traditional administrator. So just being careful about how you're crafting that job description, making sure that their job responsibilities, roles and responsibilities are very clear. And whoever they're reporting to isn't treating them like the city administrator.
So there's an experience of bringing in a junior and indicating there's job growth available. Which would be very attractive, mentoring.
There's room to grow potentially, the city would look at it as a figure in the future, but making sure that the person is very clear on that and also everybody else too.
That's right, you've got to be clear, because if that person gives those were stepped on, and you bring your new administrator coming in, that's not to just communicate up front, hey, you're the first. But you're gonna be or even as an administrator eventually.
The job descriptions show those as being temporary responsibilities that get changed. Right.
Happy.
Chad would like to make a comment?
Yeah. Sorry, is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just my closing thoughts, it sounded like we are kind of closing this off a little bit, but really appreciate the three experts there as far as the information given. And one of the things I was thinking this panel was going to be, and something that I hope in the future we still focus in on a little bit, Christine, is that and it's something that one of the very first meetings we ever had as the 6 elected. In fact, I think it was actually the very first one up at Peddlers. We started off the meeting and just started rolling into things, and I stopped the meeting and just said, whoa, wait. Are we not going to take any time to kind of get a feel for each other and understand where each of us are? And I still think that even 6 months into this, 7 months into this, we're lacking that a little bit. And so I would hope that we would be able to have some time to be able to kind of get an idea vision-wise for the 6 of us, that what we've kind of gathered from the first 6-7 months from working with the residents and being able to put together more of as we're making these structural decisions that are incredibly important. And that's why I think this meeting's been so good for me, because I thought it was going in a different direction as far as more of the vision side of it. But I also I just want to make sure we don't take our eye off and skip that step of this. I think it's a very important step that we take some time to focus in on. And I'm hoping, Christine, from talking with you, it sounds like you've kind of got your finger on that as far as understanding where to go with that and finalizing that vision statement that we have to bring that back around so that we're better aligned on where we're going with that. Because I also think that's going to be an important part of us making these decisions on hiring and stuff, as far as what we feel as the 6 of us, and also based off what we've learned from where the residents want us to go and why we were originally elected to the positions we're in right now too. So that's just my thoughts with that.
Yeah, I think that's good comments, Chad, particularly as we were thinking about what Duncan shared with us in the beginning, his 6 steps, and his last step was listen and know your constituents. And I think you guys have that well at hand. I don't think it'll take us much to get it down to a consistent set of ideas that you all share and repeat consistently. I think that's the end goal. But I think the baseline and the pillars are all there. So I think we're really close to what you're asking for.
And set our priorities. We really have to identify our top 2 priorities. You guys looked at us and identified 2 very key important ones that we have here in the valley, I believe. So we have to have conversations about that. It's gotta be, I think the team setting those priorities.
And part of that goes in with the budget. When you look at the budget, where's money gets, right? So you can see it right away.
Yeah,
Of course, it's the planning and it's that. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When there's more funding, you can have forward thinking and all this other stuff, but right now in triage, those are the 3 most important sections. So.
Duncan, I heard you volunteer to be on our selection committee. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Actually, if I had time for that, which I probably would, I think I could be very helpful there.
Maybe the other 2 might say.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
That's an important thing, I think.
Having gone through many of my life, we appreciate people who've been there and been there.
Okay. Mayor, are we ready to move on to our agenda?
Is there anything else that was,
Yeah, I just want to thank our panel experts. It's been really valuable. You got a lot of good information and context for us to consider, and we would love the opportunity to call you back in when we get to the next step.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
we'll give them a minute. Thank you guys. Very good, Gerald.
Yes, shaking the leg. Thank you. Yeah, Madison, you're awesome as always. Thanks.
Bring our council members back to the table. We have a meeting that we're still in. Wow. Is it happening line?
Yes.
Okay. Chad, are you staying on for the rest?
Yes, I plan on staying on. I appreciate you letting me jump on like that. I was not planning on being here based off some work things, but I felt like it was important to sit in on those first bit. I do have a potential meeting starting at 4. I've tried to push it off, so I'm still waiting for a text on that. But if I do go, I'll let you know beforehand.
All right. Item number 4 on today's agenda are the consent items that would be on tomorrow's agenda for approval, so this is where we're able to talk about them, pull them apart, see what we need to do. So starting with the minutes, we've got a number of minutes there that have been made available for people to review. I made a couple of comments into the folder. So everybody else have time to get in there and take a look?
Yep.
You haven't, Lauren? All right, approval of payments, I had uploaded the current payment schedule, or payment report in there. But if you have anything in Casell that's waiting for you, we can still update that payment report with the latest and greatest, but it currently has what it has, some of our first big bills coming. All right, and Ms. Shaw is not here with business licenses, but this actually goes to a good little question here of redundancy. So because we are very lean here, this is for the public, so when anybody goes out of town, what's the backup? And so did she put anybody in charge of business licenses?
I looked in the folder, there's nothing uploaded for today, so I assumed.
Oh, no, in like our folder,
Right, but I went to the business license folder also thinking that's where we were.
but you didn't go to Frontier, is what I.
No, I did not go to Frontier.
So, okay, great, so this is just a topic we need to be discussing, so that when people go out of town. And that includes recording success, I know we did a resolution back in the day allowing council members to step in as recorder. Well, we all need to figure out web and all kinds of stuff, so.
We did turn 2 more. Recorded some, recorded for the planning commission.
Yes, I was saying that one seems to be covered, website, all kinds of other things we need to be having redundancy on, so that people can go on vacation. Gotcha. All right, so number 5 on today's agenda is the interlocal agreement with the Weaver County Sheriff's Office regarding school resource officers. I'm gonna turn this over to Councilmember Dylan Baker.
Lieutenant Prager called today and asked that it be pulled.
Because I had lots of problems with it. I was just gonna wait to talk about it. It's been full.
Yeah, it's been pulled.
Perfect. All right, so that will not be on tomorrow. Okay. Agenda item 6, Public Works Projects, discussion.
So, real quick for everybody knows that, or should know that tomorrow night we'll vote on the stormwater management plan. It's out there to review if you want to. We're also including in that an MOU between us and On Developed Watershed Action Group because they've stepped forward to be part of what we do. So again, it goes if you want. Last time we met, which was last Thursday, we talked about taking a vote tomorrow evening to actually say what we're not gonna do for roads maintenance. And that we authorize JB and Zions to initiate the transportation utility fee. So I've asked Corbin, Kay or whoever, put together the resolution on those two. And I wrote an article draft for the paper regarding both of those. So I say for the following reasons, here's what we're not gonna do for roads maintenance. And part of all this in our budget situation is we are gonna initiate a transportation utility fee study to make a decision later. So hopefully that'll go final and be able to publish it. As part of the stormwater big picture, Les and I, Fred wasn't there, and Nate met with USU, Dr. Bethany Nielsen and Hugh Hurlow from Utah Geographic Survey last week. And talked with them about options for follow-on studies of some sort in the future, really focused on the non-point source, which is what stormwater is. And Bethany Nielsen from USU said that they may have a grant opportunity that they're pursuing that would at least make the ability to do sampling of the surface water streams here. So I'll keep you all posted as this plays out. It all comes down to the money and where's the money. It was Les and I and Nate who had a chance to talk with them. So that's where we are on things water and roads. I'll update you on other stuff on your council comments. Any questions?
Oh, I did have one, and I wanted to make sure, and there was a phrase in there, does regulatory reach mean for the Ogden Valley Watershed Group MOU? does that mean? I wanna make sure they're not in any kind of compliance mode, it's just education and providing it.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know which specific sentence you're referring to, but we were they and us were very keen to make sure. That everybody understands they're not responsible for compliance, that we are.
Right.
And so that's that's the way that their lawyer, and I think it was the right language, saying, we'll do the service for you, but we're not responsible legally for compliance, you guys are. That was the intent.
Okay, well, it wasn't specifically stated that does not do no regulatory breach.
Responsibility.
So we said.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll tweak it. So just something there, I think it's really important, they're just, they want to be an education from what I was reading.
their attorney provided that language, and they are happy with the
Okay.
language that. The current MOU has. If we're happy with it, I would suggest we choose. We are accepting all the responsibility and
Right.
liability, they have none, is the,
Right,
they
okay,
are simply providing the service.
just wanted to be clear.
Thank you. Anything else? No.
Nope, well, I wanna be clear for the public, I don't know if it would have made sense, but the vote tomorrow with the transportation utility, I think to be clear, is to authorize the work that needs to be done for the studies and things like that that have to be done before we can actually have a transportation utility fee. I know you said it somewhat,
We're not voting tomorrow night to impose a fee.
Right.
We're voting tomorrow night to authorize the studies to look at whether or not anyhow we'll go back to the.
thank you, just wanted to make sure the public was clear on that. All right, next item on the agenda is number 7, which is the city name, scope of work and cost projections. I'm looking, I printed it all out.
To follow up, yeah, we're gonna be learning here, that came quick. To follow up on last Thursday, Gia had asked for some information. And Victoria has sent a number of grassroots information to her because we didn't have Mia's yet. I just saw as I walked in today, so I didn't get to read the survey data, raw data from the second one that Mia sent right as I was pulling in. So that I'm sure Victoria will forward to Tia also. So we have 2 people on the committee here, Edith and Lori.
Victoria conversation.
Oh, and Victoria, 3, thank you, hi Victoria. So we hope that you could send that to Tia. Donna, I can't get an answer, but what I can do is say when we asked the question about multiple people voting, Dr. Johnson was very clear, he said that the Qualtrics system took care of that, and he had high confidence in the validity of it. So that is a data point for that.
May I have them comment?
Mhm.
Okay, Edith Songer, I live in South Fork. I just wanna say, I mean, I know that we have to have a fair amount of trust in the Qualtrics platform, and maybe that's hard to do. But if we have people in District 5 who are getting around it and making multiple entries, we probably also have people in Districts 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 doing the same thing, people on all sides of the question. And so I think in the end, that would probably even out.
So
Yeah,
there it is.
Thank you. And
Data point.
the person that I quoted is actually in Peggy's district. You're right, it's, the numbers are the numbers. I mean,
Yeah.
the preference, not voting, but preference of each district was clear based on the responses. The question that people have asked and what they pointed out is, hey, I voted 5 times, how did that happen? If we can't get an answer, we can't get an answer, and it'll be a deal.
We did try. The one other thing I can share with you is that through all the grassroots studies that everybody in the committee did, that they brought to us. And we wanted them to go bigger and get a program that would have a little more validity to it. When we got the results, I emailed Edith and Victoria and said, did anything surprise you? Did you see anything different? Same information. People wanted to change the name. They wanted mostly to drop city. They wanted to have something familiar and Eden rose to the top. So we have multiple data points about that.
So in your district.
Yeah, except in your district, it was tiny. So, okay, so that's the background, the scope and the work scope, that's thinking may change the name. I was asked to create a scope of work. It's in there, I did a brief timeline, but it's not Um. It's, so are we running? Can we put it up
It's
there?
not right there. Well,
I'm,
wait a second, hold on, let me get back control.
and I am not able to open it. It
Neither
says-
am I.
So whoever saved it in there. Saved it from a system that does
Yeah.
not allow.
Sounds like that would be great. So you've got 2 documents and one of them specifically. You have to ask for permission. And I asked for permission like 4 days ago. But I haven't been given permission, so I can't see the document.
No, Kathy, can we pull it up on?
And then separate from that, there is the person on this item that is,
want that person.
okay,
Person on this one that what?
you're not even,
May I say one document is the code? 71-118. And I'm line opens. Well, sure, it's from your
file.
From your.
My own computer, my own computer. Anyway, the scope I outlined by what we should do. I guess just a recap for us, the first part is the Utah code is very similar to change the name municipality. We select a preferred name, we write a resolution, the final notice comes from the lieutenant governor. I left 4 to 6 weeks. Once we get the certificate of name change, we have to report it with the county recorder. We cannot do anything with a name until it's recorded with the county recorder. So that gives us time to get volunteers together, to raise money if we want to. We have 2 volunteers already. I haven't asked Lori yet. So we have 3 volunteers where we can get a committee going, we can keep the naming committee open and do that. So everything else seems to be getting copies of that letter and sending it to our contractors, to our government officials, to Weaver County Health, to the fire district, to UPS, to everyone. So that's the big part of it. Sending the letter with a cover letter that we've changed our name. I emailed every department, I emailed a few contractors to see what their cost would be. We checked with Tech Legion, so ordinance, about $100 to file, we assume, that's high end, probably free. IT, $12 to get a new domain, but what we would have to do is transition our website to a new one. So that Tech Legion can help us with. Kathy, jump in if I'm speaking here. Tech Legion can help us with that. But all the forms that Kathy made for us and all that will require time and some cost to go with that. To recreate some of the forms. What form? Like I have a law enforcement form and a contact us form and some of those.
is all of this on the document that we can't open?
Yes.
Okay.
You would also get all new logins for your laptop, so you lose all of your settings you currently have. So you would all have to restart with that, but all the files and folders of permissions we already have, we can keep them, so we don't have to rebuild them, which saves us a lot of time.
I think we have to change our Microsoft 360 and our SharePoint and all of that. Okay,
We would just rename it, but we can just import the new name into that and delete our old stuff and all that, so that saves us a lot more time.
So let's see, planning through JUB said $200 just to make some changes, take a little staff time to do that. Jeanette said no cost for the banking. I don't have anything on insurance changes yet.
it will just be a letter.
The letter, yeah. Recording, with minimal cost. And legal. Yeah, where we go. Internal financing, probably 0 to 200 was range, just to get some things done. Paper stamps, we estimate $200, sending out a letter, communication up to $500. We've got some items we might need to do. Public meetings, $50 for a new seal. And if we need to get you new gavels, we'll take over them. So estimated cost is $500 to $1,200.
Did you do legal?
I did not, I didn't get anything. I said it, did you?
Yeah, legal was minimal
Oh, no.
to 1,000, depending on whether we do work inside or outside.
Over the ordinance, yes.
Yeah, legal work and, I've already got resolutions drafted and a legal timeline prepared.
So I put that under ordinance, sorry.
But,
Yes, so that's, I did add it in the total, so we're about, $1,200 max, we have $300 left in our main city budget, $345. Something like that, and we can continue if directed to do so, to try to raise some more money to make these changes. So I apologize, you cannot, and then I was so proud of myself for uploading it. I apologize for not asking, but I didn't see it. So it is there, and it's just a rough outline of things. Then we have the communication campaign and the timeline for that and what we would need to do to push it out.
Can we talk about timeline for voting and timeline for implementing changes?
Well, I'll back into that.
Okay.
Implementing changes is going to be ongoing for a while. We're in a very good spot. We don't have signs for cities. We don't have a lot of things in place. So that is a good position to be in. So it's a communication and an ongoing communication. So that's gonna take us, I would say, a year with communication, getting it out and just educating people as we go along and new people that come into our city. Going forward, we change everything. We do not need to go back and do any changes. But records should be maintained in their original state, so nothing should change that way. I say no new information. I had hoped we had thought about it, we could jump in and vote. Because every day I get multiple emails. We did this survey 2 months ago. Why haven't we made a decision? I really think this, you need to move on from this and work on other things. So I understand the angst for some people who want a certain name and are very passionate about it. I've heard from them too, and I understand that. And I have also heard from people who don't want that name, so we've heard that, but what we've heard is the majority. And I think I'm ready to vote personally, so I would recommend, we have a resolution written, I recommend we vote tomorrow.
So I wanna back it out to get clarity on, you said communications about a year, are you talking about like a brand rollout? What are you talking about, a year of communications?
It could be, I just think to make sure, in the first month. Well, I put 4 weeks to get it recorded. I have no idea the timeline, so 4 to 6 weeks to get it recorded. And then from there, we start contacting vendors, we do a couple of months of that, make sure everybody has letters as we get new people, we're gonna have to explain, we're not Ogden Valley City anymore, we've transitioned, this is a new name. So that's gonna take about 6 months. So I just think for the community to get in a groove where we're using our name, I would say it would be a year. But that's just a guess. And I'm very open to that.
I think we could do work on the sequencing of what needs to be done. We have some who collateral. We don't have hats or patches or anything. There's very little change in terms of the communication. I think our community and even the outside media are ready to hear what it is. And so.
And the brand rollout, we need a logo, we need a logo, we need to.
That takes money, that's why I'm asking what you're talking about. Cause
Yes.
it's one thing to just send some emails, but a brand rollout, with
Maybe,
like logos.
maybe we'll go, the logo though, we gotta have a logo, we didn't do a big campaign, for the old DC. Yeah,
You can likely get a logo.
I think we could get a logo. We contest something, we can figure out something to do, as opposed to a whole brand and hiring somebody to do that. We don't have that kind of money, so we would have to work with our community to brand it and roll it out.
It's straightforward. The doing becomes easy, the hard thing is the what. I believe in this case, the right thing to do is have all 5 people here to vote. I understand the perception of difference between when we voted for the general plan and that can March. I accept that and I understand that. We can talk about why it's different, because I think it is, but I would suggest we choose a date, put the date on the calendar, and I believe that it would satisfy the community. All right, there's the date, and they're actually gonna vote, make a decision. And I think that would probably satisfy the people. As long as there's a date, we stick to it. What we know is the first available date that we've all talked about is the 11th of August. No, that won't work because Chad won't be here. Chad will actually be getting.
August, we have 2 public hearings for it.
But that's manageable if we're all here. Chad's gonna be getting on the Middle Fork, so he's not available then. So it would be the next one in August or the first one in September. We figure out who's there, we make a decision, and we put it on the calendar. That would be my recommendation. If we can put it on the calendar, the people will know that we're finally gonna deal with this. He is not here now. He has asked it for the opportunity to vote in person. I'm not here the first one in August. I have asked for the opportunity to vote in person. Chad is not here on the 11th, regardless of what we do, and Chad's not here on the 18th. So
He's not on the 18th.
I believe he's not. You have to follow up with Chad.
You should be on. Are you still on, Chad?
He is still on.
I am on, I will not be there live on the 18th and I'll be hit and miss. The best date for me, and we discussed this, is the 25th.
You'll be here tomorrow then, won't you?
Yes, I will be here tomorrow.
The 25th of what month?
There's no, well, we don't have a meeting scheduled on the 25th.
Yeah.
The next one, whatever the first Monday of September would be the next.
I think his point is we could call for one.
Well, we could.
I would like to explain my case then, because I don't know if people understand why I'm pushing for that tomorrow. Because when we did the general plan and the TDRs and the Fort-based village and the zoning map, I was on the country and I asked in writing and twice and was not given an answer, and the vote went ahead. So if we're talking about how we're gonna operate as a team, I think we need to have some consistency. If you're out of town, and I was out, I tried to plug in from the airport, but I had to board a plane, so I could stay for the vote. And I missed it because I made a choice, and that's great. I wouldn't, people need to have family time. I think that's part of what we do. I honor that. But I say business goes on. And we need to do the business of the city, and this is big business, I understand that piece too. But I also think we could make an exception for a write-in or volunteer vote, something that we can continue to do the work of the city and move forward. I think September seems quite frankly way too long for me, so that's my statement. I'll pass it to Kate.
Did you raise your hand? Are you next?
She passes.
I heard it little sound, so I passed.
I feel strongly, we heard panel say, listen to the community. This is such an important matter to the community. And that includes an important matter to each of the districts who want to be sure that their person, their elected officer, is at the table expressing their point of view. And for that reason, I want to honor Tia's request to be participating in person. As for prior votes, I think those are different. They are different in their scope and nature. We were also on a very tight timeline to get out of the moratorium. And so I think we should find a day when everyone is here, and I think it must be before September. We may have to call a special meeting, but so be it. We have done it, and it's easy to be done. I say this knowing too, I hope to take a vacation too someday, but I have places where I can call in, so not worried about my vacation. I think we need to have people able to participate, and I know Councilmember Shaw is in Canada and probably not able to participate electronically.
Not only is she, maybe or not, but she wants to be there in person.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into debate over what happened in March, but I'm gonna foot stomp the general plan and the zoning map had to be done, because without them, land use code could not be deliberated and passed out of the planning commission to us. So one of the reasons, right, wrong, or indifferent, but one of the reasons why at that council, we decided to address them was so that planning commission could go ahead and not lose the 2 weeks that would have had to be lost had we not made the decision. And we'd already lost 2 weeks because of the issues related to the public announcement that it, or the whatever it's called, the public notice that it happened on the first one. So we're already delayed one. That was why. And speaking personally, I tried everything I could at that meeting, Peggy, to honor what you had said about the general plan, to make sure that your concerns were addressed in the general plan. But I hear what you're saying. To me, it is a different issue. People, the business of the city and the planning commission could not be done without the general plan and the zoning map adopted.
I would respectfully disagree with you because I think we had time.
But I'm just telling you that
Calendars.
that was why we did it. We could debate whether or not it was the right thing to do.
We need a process. We need to stick with it and we need a process that says we are going to do this. Because otherwise I feel like it's not equitable. And
I wouldn't say then propose the process, but we don't have one now, and you've got 2 members.
yeah,
I will not agree today to have the vote tomorrow.
Where will I?
No, there's no vote to be had, but I'm sensitive to what Tia's asked and I'm sensitive to what I've stated about the first week of August. And Chad has come back and said he's not available on the 11th or 18th, which are the next, the ones in August. If he said he's not available on the 11th and the 18th.
but he is available tomorrow. So
Well, noted, I'm just telling you where I'm coming from.
may I ask him though, Devin? Chad, what is your feeling in going ahead with the vote or not? And then we'll kick it to the mayor.
Well, I don't, to clarify just a couple of things that were said there, I think is important. That there's a couple of strong statements made as far as the timing of the vote of the general plan. I don't want to be the devil's advocate in this as far as the timing of that. I do not believe that we had some time to hold off on that. We'd have to go back and look at the minutes on that and look at the recordings to verify that. I don't want to be the one who has to do that. I think it's beside the point. It's not beside the point because I think what Peggy's bringing up is a very important part of this, is that it does seem as though her request was ignored. And for whatever reason, we're putting a preference on this one being more important than that one. And I think we're getting into murky water when we start doing that based off of perceived importance of a vote. And so I think that that this next vote is very, very, very important. I do think it's important that we can figure out a way of having everyone involved with it. I think maybe it's a question we might want to turn to the committee who's been helping out so tirelessly, so helpful in getting these numbers to us, to find out what they think, if possible, if there's a way that maybe we can push it off and put it out to the public and say, we understand the importance of the vote, and maybe ask them if a date like August 25th or August 19th, when everyone can be there, if we're setting that precedence for this important vote, to set that for the residents of the valley, if they think that that's okay. And it might actually be the responsible thing to do right now, to possibly push that out, to give the residents a chance to know that, hey, here's the date on the calendar. Please continue to give us your opinions on this. I know I've spent time in the last week, every single person I talk to, it's part of my conversation. I ask it. I've asked it to all different districts. I've gotten a lot of different answers, and it's helped me to solidify where I'm going with my vote. So sorry, that's a long-winded version of I'm fine with tomorrow. It doesn't sound like tomorrow's going to happen. So if tomorrow's not going to happen based off of majority of what the council people think. I think we put it back to the committee and ask if they feel like that is an all right next step to put it out there on the calendar.
So I'm not quite sure. So you would be okay if the vote was tomorrow and you'd be okay if we postponed it? You'd be okay either way?
Yes, I would, Peggy. And I guess
I'm
based
just
off
trying
the,
to clarify, so,
Yes.
Mayor, that's where we're at.
Okay,
So I don't know, the mayor sets the agenda, and so I'm gonna.
The agenda's already.
the agenda is set for tomorrow, and I have the city name on there as update discussion. And I did that because of the fact that we weren't able to access the scope of work and cost projections, and we discussed that we wouldn't be voting until we were able to pick through it.
Yeah.
But I sent you an email 4 days ago asking for requests for access to it.
I'll have to say, I did not get that.
And so I literally, this was done today, everybody's had as much time as they could possibly have within the legal realm to get the information out. And so I had to put something up, I did choose to put it on the agenda for discussion, so I would hope that tomorrow. Access to the actual documents for scope of work and cost projection so that we can really dig into it. Because I'm still questioning what the black box of IT is and what the black box, when I've talked with Kay Larison, she's mentioned. That there's a bunch of financial stuff with banks and things, I don't know what it entails, maybe it doesn't cost anything, I don't know, but what is the work? We need to know, because there's gonna be a transition there, that actually. My understanding, our volunteer treasurer, who has been looking to step down for a while now, has waited because she is saying there's gonna be all this name stuff and I wanna be able to help because it's gonna be really chaotic. Well, what is that? So I want to see the scope of work so that it's a project management situation, we want to do it correctly. And I can make sure I communicate that clearly, was that we need to have this stuff. So anyway, I did put it on for discussion, I think we can have all that discussion tomorrow. And then, you know, I just learned, I wasn't aware that the 18th was also, that Chad would be on the 18th, and so. We need to get back in communication with everybody and see what is everybody's travel schedule.
I don't feel I'm going to do that, or that's part of the name of the committee thing, I'm gonna pass that to you to coordinate a date and time.
That's always my job.
So I'm gonna just.
But I can only do
Just to be clear, just to be clear, I don't think that was mine.
Nope.
I
don't
will
know.
send out, I will send out the scope, like I said, it's just an outline, I'll send that out, but I don't have all these things, she gave me a dollar amount. And did not, you know, so I don't have what
I
I
asked
thought,
that you drive that. Like,
Yes,
drive
and
that
happy
project
to,
management.
and happy to, but we have time, we have to get the certificate, we gotta get it recorded, we have time to sit down with the volunteers and get that fleshed out with Kay, and get it fleshed
Yeah,
out with whoever.
I'll resend the legal timeline and cost communications. I got it. You didn't get it, but I also prepared the legal checklist of what we have to do, so that will be great helpful.
Yes,
Put this together and we will be.
so whenever you decide,
Well, so can that be part of tomorrow's packet? So we can
Absolutely.
go through it all together.
Absolutely.
And that way we can, because I hear you, Councilor Domingo, that we have time for that. Remember that when that thing gets announced, it's gonna be everywhere.
You are the one.
All the news media, everybody's gonna roll it, and all of a sudden it's gonna be chaos if we don't have a step-by-step plan of action. We want a step-by-step plan of action. I'm not saying hold everything up until every single I is dotted. But you wanna know what you have to do first, because the media's gonna pick it up and it's off to the races. Yes, ma'am.
It's still in
Sorry, Christine,
Sorry.
announcement.
Yes, I'm seeing no answer. In our earlier conversation today, we were talking about some organizational design. And Chad, I hope you're still on the phone. I think one of the things that you were particularly curious about is where we left off with our vision statement and our goals. And I think we collectively agree that those are important. I would like to suggest that this should be married with the launch and the release of your city naming.
I think it gives the city naming more power, more emphasis, it grounds it, it tells the people, not only do we have a new name, but this is what we stand for and this is what we're gonna go do. I think it would put a lot of momentum behind the organizational change at the same time. And it puts a timeline on the calendar for us to finish the work that we started. So if I could stay in the loop on the timing for when you get to the vote and when you're building your plan, your budget, your launch plan, that perhaps this might be incorporated, and I would like to plug and help you with that. If it makes sense. Yeah.
I may add, Christine has distributed and asked for feedback, and do you still want feedback?
Yeah.
Next level?
And the feedback I heard from all of you when we did those interviews, the vision statement and the goals were certainly part of our conversations, but there was a strong request not to let that override the conversation about organizational design. So I'm thinking these probably need to, splinter off, take their paths and then come back for an intersection by design. But I think the vision work and the goals, perhaps I just need to set up another work stream that's running parallel to your naming initiative. If you guys agree that they should land at the same time,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
fine.
it would be an ideal way to really put meat on the bones behind the naming in addition to
What do you think?
where we're going.
I don't know a lot about the vision statement, but Victoria, since they turned off the chat, she just wanted to say that she thinks that the public would likely be interested in knowing when it was happening and would be
Yeah,
glad to
absolutely.
see it coming.
No, and I agree, and I think we need to announce that. So I need to get with all the counselors and find out their travel schedules, because some of it's popped out, I haven't been advised of. Did you have your hand up?
I did.
Okay.
Chad, my peer, you've stated that you're not available on the 11th or 18th of August. Do you wish to be present for the vote? If not, that's, I'm asking because if he chooses not to, then that makes those 2 days open within a month to get it done. Tia cares, I care. If he doesn't care, this provides an option.
Yes, Don, that's a very easy answer, yes. And I want to just make sure that I'm not the only one pushing this vote around. There's other people going to be out of town. It's kind of pushing
No,
on, yeah, so.
I respect people going on family time, please believe me, I do that. I'm saying from a procedural standpoint, it feels very bad. So we are not following what was done with me, and I would just like to say that that's very disappointing that it changes. So I'll leave it at that, I'll work on the scope, I'll get it, if we don't need it in a hurry, I'll have it to you tomorrow. The outline of what we said.
Oh, I think we should talk about it, Jim.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
because. Sorry, yes.
I want to just say, I want to foot stomp what Peggy just said. First time I've ever used that word, Don, foot stomp. Sounds good.
Thank you for using it, but
Yes.
we're speakers.
But I very much agree with what Peggy just said there. I think we're setting a precedence that go further down the line. We're going to run ourselves into a problem saying, oh, wait, I think this is an important vote. I want to be there. And we're going to push ourselves into a weird scenario where we can request, and it's already been done once and been shot down. But on this one, we're setting a new precedence based off of perceived importance of a vote. And I'm not saying it's not important. I think it's incredibly important, but I also think the general plan vote was incredibly important also.
Thank you. Anybody else on this topic?
No.
Otherwise, it's coming back up tomorrow night.
And did we pick a date, or is that gonna be done tomorrow?
I have to figure out everybody's travel schedules.
Okay.
So I've gotten, unless there's new ones, I've gotten them from Councilmember Sean Hickman. They send them right on the shared calendar, so we all know that, well, I now have Councilmembers. But I put them so that everybody knows, and including staff. When staff is going out, it's on the calendar so people can see that.
And if I can chime in, and I've asked this before, if you are unavailable going out of town, and unavailable to participate, please put it on the calendar. So that we can avoid this, it's not right to necessarily count on one-on-one or ad hoc communication, just put it on the calendar when you're not gonna be available.
Yeah. I would appreciate that. Okay, council comments, agenda item 8, So we can start at that end, actually, because that would be numerical order, we'll go with Councilmember June Baker.
Code enforcement, just an update, we're trying to move it to code city inspect, so everybody can get in there, look at it. See what we're getting in terms of numbers and violations and responses. So we want it very transparent, right now, Rayanne said they're building it, we're not quite ready to put her on, so she's doing a Google spreadsheet that I will send out. So 35 code enforcement complaints she's followed through or following up on. Multiple requests, multiple things happening. Biggest ones has been the signs, and we really need to clarify what's happening with these signs.
So what do
So,
you mean by that? I don't know what you're trying.
signs along the road to wash your windows, put up your full on, do your fence, staple.
Like
along
little
the road.
A-frame or.
Yeah. So she's working on that. We reviewed the code again, and since we call them Weaver County, we're talking to them. They never have allowed those signs.
Right.
So we're gonna take the same stand, and we're not gonna allow those signs. There are one or two exceptions for businesses that are tucked away that the county gave, which was grandfathered that in with those signs.
Will you be able to do anything like an article, this is the day that everything's kind of.
Yeah,
Because
I certainly can.
because especially if there is some sort of exception, what is that exception, so that we don't have mass confusion in the public?
yeah, it'd be almost ready to go code again, but I'll try to condense it. But I can reference the code. It's because businesses can put some out in front if you have a location, if you don't have, so I'll do my best and I'll send it.
Well, I would just make sure it's in layman's terms.
And see if it'll make sense, yeah. So I'll work on that. So that's going on, just so you know, a lot of noxious weeds, junk too, along with that. So I'm excited about that. People are using the website, they're going there. It's the code enforcement form that Kathy built for us, one of those forms that's fillable and has all the information we need, so that's fine. Second thing is I have a town hall Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. So we'll be going over all of this fine information.
What location?
Oh, excuse me, Weaver County Library at 6 o'clock, Wednesday night. Hope to see everyone there.
Excellent. District 3.
Could you send me an email so we put it on the calendar?
Oh, sure.
Yes, thank you, thank
Thanks,
you.
Debbie.
It's four things, just an observation on this transition. I think our goal should be to protect and keep our routine administrative assistant here, whether it's IT or records. Protect that and do a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the detail implementation with our fabulous volunteers on the naming committee. You guys can do just about anything. I want to compliment Councilmember Julian Baker and Ray Ann, our code enforcement officer. They are working well together and they're both on it. And I see the signs mounting up in our office. As they are. And also bear in mind, some people, one person emailed asking where you can get them back. And so I referred that to Ray Ann.
And that's why we keep them, we wanna give them back.
Which I thought was great.
Yeah.
Because I thought, and also, when you use recycle camping, you realize how expensive signs are, so if you want them back, great.
Okay, newspaper articles, please give me drafts tomorrow. Jeannie's got a new publication schedule. She needs to have things uploaded and ready to print Thursday at 6. So that moves her schedule ahead a day. In terms of articles, we've been submitting an outrageous amount. Thanks to my co-authors and other folks. I think last time we had 7 to 8, 9, whatever. What I'm going to try to do is create a new feature called the Council Beat What's Happened in the prior 2 weeks. So we can track the votes and the issues in one place. We'll still have topical articles. I have some fabulous news. Just in terms of involving the public in both communications and our treasury roles and finance roles. Yesterday, interviewed a person who is volunteering or hoping to volunteer after further consideration to help us with communications. This was a response to an ad looking for social media. This person though is the full strategic manager in communication. She could help us across multiple communication sites. On the finance side, we've had, I think just 6 people step forward to see if they can help with the treasury. I'm scheduling those interviews. And as I told them all, we want to have redundancies and backups for each of these roles. So we can give our folks relief and assistance as they need it. So I think that confirms we have a very talented and helpful community going forward.
Is the communication person gonna need account of the city, or are they doing it as like a contractor, providing your own email address and whatnot?
TBD to be decided. Yeah. We're talking about a volunteer, well, yeah, some of the volunteers have their emails too. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Councilmember Booth, are you still there for any comments that you want the public or your councilors to all know about?
Yes, I do. Just one thing on the code enforcement. I think it's great that we have the code enforcement working. I think it's been great with the with what's been going on. My one question, and I don't know if there's been an answer with that, but the question I got from a person who is currently building a home is the process of on their private property having contractors who put their signs up, which is a common practice to do with whether it be signage to find the place to or what, but they do some advertising with it too on that private property. I think we should have some leeway there with an active home that's under construction to allow for those contractors who are doing their jobs to put their sign. I don't know what code enforcement says on it. I have no idea. This was feedback I got from that homeowner and his frustrations for getting rid of that his signs that were on his private property. And I tend to lean towards the homeowner on that. I don't want to be over code enforcement with stuff like that, but I also understand the nature of making sure that we're not have signs all over the valley. So that's just my feedback I got from that homeowner.
Understandable, he's building the home, he should have his advertisement out front as in the code. Rayanne did not take that sign, so I don't know who did. She contacted the gentleman and talked through it with him. She would, if she took it, she'd return it, but we don't have it. So that was a confusion. I don't know how to answer that for the homeowner, but
Okay.
It's not our practice, Chad, to take construction signs on private property or any sign on private property that's right there.
Okay.
And there are exceptions in the code also for agriculture, farm stands and different things. She knows that. That's the first thing we did is review the code, and she is working with Weaver to make sure the enforcement then will be like it has been.
Perfect.
Until we change anything.
Okay, my next thing is the Weaver County Fair. I was approached by the fair committee and they offered us a booth down there. It does not have to be manned, but we do need to set it up. And I'm just asking city council's help there. I don't know what we have, if we have anything. My guess is we don't have much based off of 4th of July, not having a lot to decorate things. But if I would love to be able to have some help as far as what you guys think we could do to show off our city down there. Unfortunately, I don't know if we'll have the actual naming part of it done yet. That would be an amazing thing to be able to have because it is August 4th that we have to be set up for that. But any ideas or thoughts with that, I would greatly appreciate it. And you can get with me separately on that if you do have any ideas with it. If not, I might just go forth and things that we can just do a simple booth that just kind of shows off Ogden Valley for that. And then lastly, I also have a town hall this week on the 22nd. I believe it's the same night as yours, Peggy. Mine's at 7 p.m. at the Hearthside.
Oh, and then anything else when we get on the calendar?
Sorry?
If you could email our IT director about the logistics so that she can put it on the events calendar.
Yep, I will for sure. Yep.
Thanks. All right, District 5.
Waste management contract, called me up, we talked with Fred and I this morning, they routinely change, not routinely, they periodically change the routes by which the dump trucks come, or trash trucks come. They are planning a route change, that'll go into effect the latter part of August, it's routine. Asked them and they've agreed that they will put they're doing these cart cards, they come to the house and or hang it on the trash can, say, you are gonna have your route changed. They're gonna put it on social media and I've asked them to put a thing in the paper, so anticipate. Some 900-ish houses will have a different day than they're currently putting their trash out will happen, but communication should happen. The excavation permit, road closure business. Nate and Matt et al. Are preparing how in the future, when an approved excavation permit happens. How many days in advance you have to inform the public, how many houses you have to go tell that the actual road is being closed or what happens. So they're doing that in coordination with Beacon Code to make sure it's all synced up in city specs. So we don't have the plan yet, but they're putting together the plan.
While they're doing that, we had talked about putting in any exceptions. Would that go under there? That's not
Acceptance to,
outside of our time for construction. Like if a company comes and says, I wanna do a midnight pour up at, blah.
this is about closure of our public right of ways,
I
not.
should say, you're creating policies for different, out of the ordinary.
This is when somebody wishes, what happened on 1900. If you're gonna close our road, this is what you gotta do.
Okay, well,
Not what happens at Porter Village or Covey or wherever.
no, I would though ask, I'll talk to you later about special circumstances and how, who approves what we wanna see as an approval process. So
Specific to this excavation thing we're doing, or,
maybe it's for construction.
okay,
So if they're building something and they wanna build it at 5 a.m. because there need trucks up there at that time, they have to get an exception to get outside of our ordinary working.
who is the acceptor, is that the question? I don't know what our code says.
Right now, you don't have exceptions, you got a code.
Well, we have exceptions happening, and what happens is,
Then it's code violation.
what we've been doing.
There's a master development agreement in this case that I don't know what it says.
It's outside of that, so it's for that. So anyway, we'll talk about it because it's an issue that if they wanna pour a water tank somewhere. And they wanna do it at 5 a.m. because it's too hot and the cement or concrete cement doesn't harden in the hot temperatures, so they want to do it at 7 a.m. Typically, what happens is they go to the engineer to get that approved. So we just need to tell the engineers what we would like to have.
Okay, I would suggest, and you finished,
Yes, and I have to.
I know, he has a hard out at 4:30, which is.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that.
So, well, it leads right into one of mine, which is to remind council of the agenda spreadsheet and how very important it is that you. Pay attention to what you're putting on, put on what you wanna see on the agenda, so if this is a discussion we need to have, please put it on the agenda spreadsheet. But pay attention to what you put on, what it says, I am often building the agenda right from it, so if you don't like the way it's worded. That's on you, cause people aren't talking to me about what they wanna do, so I'm just taking the wording. And then, but also. Go back and take a look, because I've had to herd cats up to the very last minute, the last few days to say. You have this on the agenda spreadsheet, I haven't seen any documents on it, do you still want this on the agenda? And then 9 out of 10 times you're like, oh no, and I'm like, cool, we're all adults. Own your business and clean up what you put on, if it's no longer valid, please. The other item is more for the public, I was involved in a new state forester and fire marshal meeting today. Certain parts of the state have had rain, obviously others haven't, this and that, so there are going to be some changes statewide, some of the firework and. Fire ordinances and bans, it does, what I wanna get out to the public is, it does not affect the valley. So there are places that are going to lift their firework ban in time for Pioneer Day. All of Ogden Valley City is within a level 5 wildland urban interface. It does not affect us, those bans will stay in place, so there's no confusion. Nothing changes here. No matter what you hear, listen, isn't it?
Okay, Lieutenant Krager at our last meeting had made a comment to me that made sense based on what you're saying. He said that he really loved our parent signs, but they become invisible if they
I left out.
if they stay there. So that before planning your day, we probably need to move them around.
That's cute.
Just so the color balloons, just so that people can see them again. Those are so hard to get them. I know, but that was just his comment.
Yeah, I can understand that, but maybe we could put some decorations.
Okay, I need, somebody to motion to,
I move we adjourn.
One second.
all right.
I'm in favor.
Okay, I guess it's, everyone's in favor, there's 4, yeah. I'm in favor. Everyone, hang out longer.
I think